Is there a motion to return to open session? Got a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Susan's aye. All right. Was it just yesterday?
It was.
We were here.
It was. Were we waiting to hear back about the jail? Was that kind of how we left it?
That was one of them, yeah.
We're here, all right.
All right. Somebody gonna present from the jail? Told we may have new numbers.
We do. Thank you.
Ma'am, give me one.
I'll give you one.
All right.
Oh, I'm good. Thank you very much.
So as you're looking through it, I'm just gonna go ahead and explain why a lot of the numbers have changed. After the original submission, we changed our methodology in looking at how we want to estimate our expenditures. The first one was calculated based on our FY26 budget and our FY26 estimated expenditures, and then we estimated for some inflation. We adjusted for those. That is our original submission. Afterwards, and following your feedback, we did a line-by-line review of all expenditures. We looked at every category to identify efficiencies and reductions where we could not compromise operations, but still save money. And we were able to reduce the proposal modestly, while still being able to maintain our core responsibilities. Let's see here. Give me time to look over it. The request was reduced slightly. And we can explain some of the larger adjustments.
Yeah, the professional services other.
Yes, is that the 5414? So in the original, the 54014, county clerk, treasurer, and benefit services are accounted for at the bottom of the sheet. It's still the same code, but it's down at the bottom. So those were accounted for at the bottom, and so we just moved all of them to the top, and since it's all the same code. We need to have 54014 down at the bottom of the sheet as well as the top, so we moved it all into the top.
Dealing with the 1.9, Randy,
Yes.
probably
Yeah.
DHS.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I thought you, sorry.
Yes, the professional services, I see a savings of 1.973 million.
Yes, that is VHS.
And that's all that consists of. Is there anything else?
And let me take a look. Over there.
54455.
Almost there. 54455 to 800,000.
The professional services other, where you're showing a savings of 1.973.
So it's under where you've got the treasurer service, benefit service, then the next line under that.
From the 393,000 to the 86,000.
Well, 382 to 86,000.
Okay. Yes, reduction of about 300,000 for VHS.
Well, but
With our program.
Yeah.
okay, do you see where you start capital outlay section?
yeah.
If you go up one,
Right,
two,
yes,
three lines,
Yes, yeah.
and it shows this year you spent, it looks like a revised budget of a little over $2 million. And then it showing a drop of 1.9 million for next year. That's what they're wanting to know. Is that 1.9 million VHS?
VHS. You kind of saying
Yes, right there. VHS is the bulk of what we've been there. There may be a few stragglers that don't account for much money that fall within that category. I need an income statement to see what else paid using that account code, but the majority was us.
That's where your
eliminating
VHS contract was.
Yes.
Okay. And then can you remind me on your professional services legal, what that increase is?
Yes, those are gonna be for expert witness fees.
Okay.
We've got 8 trials coming up that were from the COVID era
Yeah,
that will be having to be
so you
tried.
guys are gonna be looking at funding those out of your budget. 'Cause in the past, the trust would come to the county commissioners and ask for funding on that side to pay for the expert witnesses, but you guys are handling that on your end.
Yes, I wasn't aware that we had them in the past, but yes, we have those in the budget.
Also looking for under the 54455, the transportation, the
Yes.
deputies,
Yes.
since we've been having a conversation about that. So, you expect to expend 800,000 on that this next fiscal year?
We were told to go ahead and leave it in there as is,
Okay.
because we don't really have an answer
Okay.
on exactly what's gonna happen there. So we left it as we had in the past.
Are you guys working on coming up with some cost estimates for running that in-house though? Because if it is gonna cost, the anticipation was that it was gonna cost less, but if it actually costs the same or a little bit more, I mean, we need to know that. That way, if you need a bump in that area.
We have not started those yet. To be honest, we've just been working on this, so, on the estimate of needs. So we have not done any cost analysis. Like to just know what the answer's gonna be first before we spend time on
With the answer on,
Whether we have to take it over.
that. The transportation to the,
yeah,
I think there was a decision on that yet.
okay.
Unless you know otherwise, we don't.
Couple of questions. Has the trust approved the revised submittal?
They have not. We were told we could bring it here today, have you all look at it, and then have it approved.
Okay, so just everyone be aware this is not yet the best approved document. And then secondly, Cody, has this been received yet? Do we need to receive it?
Well, we were just gonna receive all of the final estimate of needs at the end. We've not been receiving any of them individually.
Right, and then the large contract reduction, was that a independent line item this year, or was a lot of that funded from the salary account due to vacancies?
Are you talking about the VHS?
This current FY, was that, how was that contract funded?
It would have been funded under professional service other for VHS.
Okay,
And so, yes, so then we use that instead of salaries. Just swap those out.
Overspend is how they did it.
I'm sorry?
The overspend is how they did it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was budgeted at a lower amount. When it exceeded that amount, we used some of
So
the
the
vacancy.
deficit spending that we, gotcha. I read in the paper today, and it gets to your ask, that the raises had been rescinded. Is that in fact the case? That apparently was a statement. I don't know if that was made before Judge Stinson yesterday or that was just made in the order.
We did remove the DO increases off of the new request.
But I don't know that the ones that have, you're talking about the ones that have already been given this year.
Yeah, I'm just going off what I read in the paper and it seemed to, and now context is everything. And the quote
Sure.
was,
And it's
those
big.
raises had been rescinded and converted to comp time.
Well, we're not doing any overtime. Instead of getting overtime payments, they're receiving comp time. But I don't know of any raises being rescinded.
Okay, so then in this new submittal, the raises that were submitted in February were taken out. Is that what I understood you to say?
No.
For the DOs?
No,
For the,
not for the ones that were given in February. Those are still included in
I think she means,
personnel costs.
I think she means a line item where it says 5% DO to LT increase, show on the
Yeah.
salary compensation.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So are y'all doing any overtime at all, or are you using comp time?
Right now, we're just, well, the medical staff can get overtime, but none for the DOs. The DOs will be comp time.
Did you anticipate the medical staff to get 600,000 in overtime?
No, the reason we left that 600,000 as we had for this past year, in this FY, we expect to spend 1.4 million in overtime. So in hoping to increase our staff to where we don't have to spend that overtime, we increased the staff and kept the overtime where it will hopefully, be more around where we expect it to be at 600,000.
Okay. Do you know what the employee count is today?
Ooh. 346? Around 346. Medical's probably 55.
Yeah,
54, 55.
Do you feel like you'll have, so if you're at 346, just using 424 as the ask, I mean, do you feel like y'all have any issues filling that 78 vacancies from what the ask is compared to what you currently have?
Well, we do have an academy coming up, where we have 40, that we'll start the academy with 40, so, I'm hopeful that we can fill those vacancies if we have the funding. We'll definitely do what we can to fill those.
With the academy that you have right now, do you know how many non-detention, so just detention staff it'll put you up, not including the 55 medical? So currently there's 320 detention staff, and then 63 are medical for the total of 383. So you know how many you would have just detention staff once that academy goes through?
I don't have any
well,
idea. I mean,
we
it's-
hope to start the academy with 40,
Right.
guaranteeing there's an attrition rate typically around the 30 to 35% mark. So we would love to get 25 or 30 out of a 40-man academy. So
Well, I mean, so like, let's say day one of the academy when everybody's hired on, and you've had no attrition yet. What is your FTE count just for detention, not the medical staff? Do you know that?
it would be the 366, or
No,
no, 380. But if you added
just
the,
detention staff, I mean, if I had 300, I'd be happy.
well,
Yeah.
by detention staff, you don't mean just DOs, you mean the clerks and
everybody
everybody
in
that's on the
the
detention
several.
Yeah,
side.
320.
So,
I think based on the numbers that you gave right now, the positions not counting medical are 292. So if you get 20 out of that, you're at, 312. So it's still 8 under the 320.
So it looks like you're wanting to increase medical personnel from 63 to 73.13, right?
Yes.
And then, so then you're wanting to increase the detention side to 351.5 from the current 320.
Yes.
I noticed there's a little bit of a change between in the last submission, for DOs. It said the salary there was 47,489, and then this time it's less than that. It's just barely over 47,000. Did those DOs change rates of pay? They actually went down. What I mean by that is last time on the 147, you submitted a budget of 6.981, and now it's 6.920. So it's about $400 less per month for all those DOs, or $400 less per year for all the DOs.
Their salaries are up a straight 47,000, there weren't
Right.
any reductions,
Okay.
so I don't know why it would have been 47,428 on the original submission unless it's.
I think FICA might have been, I think FICA was included, the raises, the FICA was included in both the original DO number and the raises. So
Okay.
it was in there twice.
It was captured
We
twice.
adjusted that, yes.
I also notice, you have one less, position that you're requesting for legal services.
Yes.
Did you take a position out of that?
We did, a legislative liaison.
Okay, you took
Yes.
them out.
We did.
With funding, if we were funding you at the additional, however many positions that is, what's the total, three versus? Roughly 41 positions. You're showing an increase in part-time for next year, going from 259,000 up to 720,000. Are you anticipating with 40 additional positions that your part-time is gonna need to almost triple?
No, the original, we had 720,000 and, 26.
Well, no, I'm not talking about your original submission to us, I'm talking about last year, in your 25-26.
The current year.
The current year, it has 259,000 in your current year budget. 259,164.
I think that's the reason.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I have so many spreadsheets up here, it's hard to know which one you're looking at, so.
I'm looking at the one you guys just handed out.
Okay,
Yeah, so it's the salary comp page for FY26, not FY27.
okay.
So at the bottom, it's got part-time 259,164, which would be for our current fiscal year.
Yes, and we had to reduce that to account for the other, like the overtime and things like that.
Well, so this current year though, you're spending 260,000, but you're asking for 720,000 this current year.
And that includes our medical staff and security, hospital security, so
Okay.
we're including that in those numbers.
Was that not included in the 259 before?
For 26.
Yeah, so the current year that we're in, I'm showing just on the document that you provided that current part-time is $259,164. So does that include the part-time for sitting on folks at the hospital?
It was, and I think the FY 27 number, sorry, I'm just yelling from over here. I think the FY 27 number, we recognized that it was woefully underfunded from what we were spending for those services, so it was kind of adjusted. If you look on up here and, yeah, it was 259, and then if you look at the income statement, we were spending way more than that, so we just made it a more realistic number.
Like we did on the overtime.
So that was my question though, with adding the extra positions for next year, do you anticipate needing the same type of part-time?
I think so, because it's outside the detention facility. It would be, like she said, it would be med runs and things like that would be, yeah, something that they would get paid a part-time for instead of being part of their regular detail.
Is the overtime outside of the jail as well, or that's medical inside?
That's medical.
So if you had 73.13 medical staff, would you need the overtime? If you're fully staffed on your ask for medical, would you still need the overtime?
That's a good question. I mean,
Right.
hopefully less.
Well,
Right.
the reason I think this stuff's important is because, so for example, if you're asking, let's say we fund you for 73.13 medical staff, that's gonna include FICA, retirement, benefits.
Mm-hmm.
An employee is way more expensive than an overtime rate.
Sure.
So if you're funded at 73.13 and you have to use overtime, like for my budget, for example, I would just pull that money out of the $5.252 million that I was given for the salaries of the full FTE equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
I do.
And so if, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is it's almost like they're being paid twice, because if you don't have the employees, you can just pay for the amount of, the amount that you were given for the full-time employees, but if,
I think it would certainly go down. The 73.13 that we have included here, if you talk to our medical staff, the ideal number is 84. So there's still an overtime factor in there. Now, we can go back and talk to them and say, do we think it could be less than this because you're getting seven more employees?
No, but if you were fully staffed at 73.13,
They
It's
say
not
we're
you would
not.
still need
fully
the
staffed.
overtime.
That's their ideal staffing. Fully staffed for them is 84.
Okay.
Brandon, our goal is to get enough there that we don't have to do any overtime.
Right.
And that number is 84 for medical.
84 for medical.
Okay.
And so we're still missing medical positions, so there still would be that need.
Yeah.
But hopefully to a lesser degree than what there was this year.
Okay. And then the part-time is for sitting on hospitals, like the reserve deputies or whoever the
Yeah,
deputies are
outside
sitting,
agencies sitting on.
Yes.
outside agencies, okay. Okay. Could you remind me what longevity and stipend is again as well?
Longevity is just, every year of employment, you get, a bonus, but
Sure.
the payment is for every year that you've worked there. So
Okay.
first you might be 200, and then the next year 300, that kind of thing.
Okay.
I don't know the exact schedule, but it's
So it's not part of their salary, it's just, it's also kind of like a stipend.
I mean, I guess you
Okay.
could call it that, yes.
Well, the reason I say is just like, so for example, like again, I'll try to just use the world I live in. So our deputies start at, let's say $50,000 is what they start at. After year one, they get a 3% raise, and the year after that, they get a 3% on top of that 3%, then a 3% on top of that 3% on top of that 3%. And obviously, at some point, it starts growing. But if that person quits, I'm going to hire the person back at $50,000. So there's a gap in there that I call longevity, because when they've gotten cost of living adjustments over the past 3 or 4 or maybe 20 years they've worked there, they're going to get paid more than that person that starts. And so so that's why I was asking, just because like in my world, I build that into my salary ask. So that's why I was wondering, it's not a salary, it's just a thanks for being here another year. Okay.
Right, because they're not getting the cost of living
Okay.
adjustments.
And then what about the stipend? What is that?
The stipend would be like when we have staff there, but we're really short, we would ask somebody to come in on like their day off
Mhm.
and pay them extra for them to come in on one of their days off.
Okay. So that's almost like an overtime then as well. You have to pay them overtime, the law
We,
requires.
yeah, we
so,
don't pay them
yeah.
the overtime, but we would pay them a stipend,
Okay.
and I think all stipends for detention officers is not, we've stopped that as well for this FY.
Okay. So who would those stipends be for, out of curiosity?
In 27,
Yeah.
we would hope to reinstate those.
Okay.
Brandon, a lot of times if they have extra training, like if they've gone through CLEAT, they get a stipend.
Gotcha.
If they're
Bilingual.
not cert, bilingual,
Gotcha,
stuff like
okay,
that.
Yeah, I'm fine with that, I just wanted to, I think people just see stipends and they think it's just random money that's going nowhere, and I just wanted to kind of point out that it's not necessarily that.
I was trying to compare some of your position categories that we listed on this request to the previous request. So you're doing a part-time person for HR, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. Then ITE, you previously I think had 5, now you have 6.
Yes, I did include the vacant, we have a vacant IT director position that I think got omitted when it was, we have an acting IT director.
So that was a vacant position and it was just it was missed in the previous submittal. Okay.
Correct.
Training department, you had 2 in the first, now you have 3.
Yes, there's a vacant trainer position.
I'm sure I do.
Omitted in the first one.
Clerk supervisor specialist. You initially, I think, had 9, now you're down to 2, you're down to 7. Is that correct?
It's correct, I was trying to think of, I don't think it was right.
I didn't do it side by side.
I didn't either. No, I would have to look to see which ones we reduced.
Okay, but you think that number is actually
Yes,
correct now?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's correct.
The next line, clerk, I think you previously had 78, now we're back to 81.
Yes, we had, I know that one of them would be, the court services. We currently have 3 employees and now court services is going to go, back to the CDA's office. So we allowed for one, of those positions to fill a vacant clerk position. And then we already had 2 vacant clerk positions that just needed to be added as well, that were omitted in the first.
So these are vacancies.
Yes.
Housing monitors, you went from 15 in the previous middle to 12.
Yes, we had some, we had budgeted for some vacancies there and decided we could use those elsewhere, so we omitted those 3.
And those 3 were the ones that got accepted to the academy. So then we didn't fund the housing monitor.
What's the program manager position, because that wasn't on
That's
your
all
previous
new.
one?
They're various, they're in various roles,
Warehouse manager.
Our warehouse manager that controls like all of our, like supplies and things like that, positions like that, that just around the agency that are responsible for an area, and they manage those as well as people.
So were they in your budget in the past, they were just in different line items?
They were not in the original. They were at the bottom of the sheet, pending where we wanted to put them, and they were not included.
But I mean, have they been there performing the tasks?
Yes, they were,
Yeah,
they're
so it's not new positions, it's not
Correct.
anything like that.
right.
You just are moving them on your sheet into a different place, but they were there before, just somewhere else.
They were not in this number. They were in our original request. They were current employees, but they were not in this number. So we added it. That's part of the increase. It'd be those 5.
It's other positions we identified that were there that didn't get counted on the original submission for 27.
So you missed positions in the original submittal. That could have potentially
Fortunately,
led to
Yeah.
budget shortages.
it still had, I think it was referred to one time as a total med contract. That's on the name.
Yes.
Is that still in place right now, this grant?
Yes.
And then where is it on your request?
In professional services. Medical.
Oh, I see it. Now, what was the reason that the spend was way higher than the original request for 25-26?
Just a shortage of actual employees.
So what is the total med working? They're outside,
Yes.
so when you give us a medical figure of people, they're not included, right?
Not in
Considered a
employees.
separate
Yes, they're counted in operating.
That would go down if you got more medical people, you think?
Yes. I would expect it.
Bless you.
Do you think since y'all have raised the from 40 to 47, you've got a lot more interest? And the reason I ask just because if, so whatever your current staffing is, do you think you'd be able to get up to the full 320 for detention for this current fiscal year since there's just a couple of months left?
For this current year, well, we'll be starting the academy with 40, so we'll increase, well, not completely 40, but because some were already counted in our current employees that are attending the academy. But I don't know about reaching the 320, but we hope for it to go up significantly.
Of course, the academy won't graduate until, what, early
The end
July?
of June.
Yeah, June 26th, I think is the projected date.
Y'all are pretty confident that $6.3 million of cash accounts coming in? The 6.3, including, that includes these things and all that?
Yes.
Okay. Does that include running your own canteen as well?
Yes.
Okay. Do you have all the startup costs for the canteen built into the budget as well? Like I'm sure you're gonna have to have a POS system and somebody to do sales tax and.
Yes, and like, it would be there on their platform and things like that are taken care
Oh,
of.
okay, so you still have a vendor, like Keith or something running or whatever, it doesn't
Yes.
matter who, but yeah, okay.
Anybody else have any other questions?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alright, thoughts? Anybody have any thoughts?
Has their new estimate needs been
I was gonna
adjusted on?
say, that's not official number yet.
Yeah.
Or not? Is that what you're asking?
No, on the other side, if the request went down, the general fund request went down by,
400?
General government contract, I believe, what we talked about with general government contract is 42,465. And then the general government breakdown.
yeah, it dropped by 42,437.57. Give or take 0 cents.
We do have one comment, I don't know, just make sure you're aware. I've been on the phone with Creo's colleague today, talking about food transportation, and so I know that he had, Chris Flanagan did talk to Tim Kennery today in regards to providing the meals, the 3 meals a day, and he said that that is a possibility. And so I don't know if that'll impact this budget. Of course, you would prepare the meals so your food costs would go up, but then we would reimburse you for that cost through the other contract. But I just, since that conversation happened an hour ago, I just wanted to make sure you were aware.
Thank you.
Is that something that could be considered a subject or supplement?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure everyone was
They're on the
aware of the
radar.
conversation.
Yeah, so that number broke right there at 42,465.169, just switched to 42,422, 732.06. Oh, there's a PDF, can't adjust it there, but
The general government, spreadsheet.
hello.
Sorry, guys.
Let's try the low one. Decreased by 42,000.
Yeah, decreased by 42,437.57.
$50, right?
Yes.
That decreased the general government request.
Yes.
Does that number include the adjusted number for the OSU extension contract?
Yes.
The general government, the number on here does?
We
She
adjusted it
adjusted
yesterday.
Yesterday.
And it included the adjusted numbers that Jessica sent over for the the 60,000 and something else.
Thank you.
What's the other one?
For
Yeah, it includes that. Yeah, it includes that too.
There's lots of unknowns on the BCC and all that, so.
Is the BCC under contract?
No, not yet.
What do you mean?
Not the operations, just the consulting.
What's the context of the question under
The
contract?
3.5, is that already committed to a contract?
No, there is a contract in place so that Creox can help us to determine some of the things that are needed in the facility, but that is a no-cost contract to the county contemplating a contract for the operations
Down the line.
down the line.
That's just a WAP or whatever you're gonna call it, a wild ass wag, a
Yes.
gas.
Wag, yeah.
Yeah.
So, some of it's less waggy than others.
Yeah, I mean, and part of it, Rick,
The transition to a flag.
before we knew we had $163 million, there were gonna have to be some hard conversations as to whether or not that facility was gonna open up the last 3 months of the FY.
Right.
Now I think that 3 point whatever number may be closer, but there still need to be some hard conversations. The conversation that Brandon was having with, I think Brent is who it was from Creox, about being able to take people directly to that facility instead of having to go through the booking process and then deciding whether or not they sign an agreement. That may impact some of their revenue, their ability to generate revenue. But yeah, I would say whatever that number was.
Well, I guess my question is, and it's been a while since I've been at this table, but why can't that be on the watch list instead of part of the budget?
Well, the watch list is just for this fiscal year.
Yeah.
25, 26.
But
You
I'm
mean the
talking
watch
about
No,
list
he's
next
talking
for
about
year.
next
starting
year.
with next year.
Right,
Well, so I think what we
because we
were,
know it's coming, but we don't know what it's gonna cost. So is the money gonna be encumbered or what?
so I think the 3.5, 3.6 budget numbers, other than what we were just told a second ago that might be some changes there. The WAG that we were talking about yesterday was stuff that wasn't included in that budget, the transportation and some other stuff.
Right,
And so-
1.6.
Yeah, so that we were talking about treating that kind of as a watch list item and readdress that come September when
Get
we
that.
have a little bit more information. But I think you're saying, look at putting the whole amount for the
Yes,
BCC
sir.
on the watch list instead of funding it upfront.
Right, we know something's coming, we just don't have a hard number. That's what I don't get. That seems unusual, but budgeting practice. That's like saying I'm gonna buy a new car next year, so I'm gonna just count it as part of my budget. How do you know what you're gonna pay? Seemed odd to me. Are they gonna go out and grab the benefits out of that? In advance, or wait till it happens? Pay monthly, is that the idea? But it just
I
seems,
think we get there, Rick. I think that's a unrealistic ask to that point. I mean, I think it's a September supplement consideration more than anything.
I agree.
I guess that's my,
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that, Rick, I think that's the appropriate time.
yes.
We'll have we have a better idea of cost.
Yes. Then the work that Credo suggests is it'll have a lot
Yeah.
more anchored number.
It just seems odd to me to put it in the budget right now,
Well, it's technically for an FY 27 budget. I think is why we did that because,
but it's only for a quarter.
no, I get it, yeah.
Well, and it's, like you said, an unknown. So how can you encumber money on the front side of a contract when it's an unknown?
And if I'm a contractor, I'm gonna bid that number or higher.
Okay, well,
They've already been awarded the operational costs, so they're not bidding to a known number. Like,
Okay,
it's not like, yeah, we have $550 million that we have available to build a jail, and everybody bids 550, right? It's not that way.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion then that we take the 3.545, 129 off of that BET request worksheet with the expectation that it'll be revisited in September during September supplement.
I'll second.
Jessica, when do you have to enter into a contract with them for operations if we were to go forward with fiscal year 27?
So January, by January.
Will you leave the line item on there and just zero it out? So, because I'm, is that okay if you did that? That way we can just.
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, so it was mentioned in BOCC this morning that, I mean, the completion of it of the building itself was hopefully gonna be by the end of the calendar year. So I think addressing this in September, we'll have plenty of time to move and adjust. And I think even at that, from what I've heard before, once the building is completed, there's still gonna be a duration of time where you're gonna have to get inspections done and some licensing stuff done and all of that, so it won't even be operating immediately
Some of
either,
that is
so.
included in your estimate, correct?
Yeah,
Some
so
of
we'll
those
have to have
costs.
insurance
some
after
initial startup
January.
costs.
So there's some
Won't be
costs that
very
will go into effect January first.
I mean, let me ask you, so it's doing this in September does not affect what the going, okay.
No.
Yeah.
And this will give us more time in order to nail down more details, and learn more about transportation. Brandon, you probably know a lot more than this, about this than I do, but, talking with them, there's a ride care contract with Oklahoma Department of
Sure.
Labor. So that could even, could be a contract that Creox looks at,
Okay.
since they're already providing like services.
Yeah.
Figuring out maybe they could provide the transportation themselves and ask for a couple more vehicles. So we're working through all those details, so September supplement would be
Yeah.
most appropriate.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, do we vote on that?
No, you did not vote, but you have a motion.
Okay, we got a motion and a second to consider the behavioral care center as part of the September supplement, removing it from the watch list, not making it a part of the July 1 beginning budget, but starting it off on the watch list that begins July 1, 2026. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Okay.
While the jail's here, if I may, would you all be, a couple of questions, and I know you may not be able to just make the decision here, but, on the increases, I know that, some of the issues that I've just seen historically around the table is that, and I'm gonna say both sides here, that raises are given, in some cases, over and above what the county gets. So like, for example, this year the DO's got a larger raise than the 3% that the rest of the county got. And so, like the 15% clerk increase, the 15% housing monitor, and the specialist increase, is that something that you'd be willing to remove if the caveat were there that we would consider putting, I mean, I can only say for me, but it's a one vote, but if during the COLAs, we were to include your employees in those cost of living adjustments every time we do that for the county. And so, look, before, I'm sorry, and so because the other side of that I also see is that, I mean, I understand where it's, and I've had a conversation recently with Mr. Holman, and when I say I've been there, I don't mean that I can walk over there and run the jail. What I mean is that I've been with this position here where I've seen the county get raises and the sheriff's office not because it was too expensive to do. And so I understand that, you know, it's easy for the group to kind of be upset about you giving raises, but when we didn't consider it in the COLA, there's kind of push and shove there. So is that something that you all would be willing to consider, is removing the raises from the line items specifically, if we were to consider that in COLAs going forward?
I wouldn't be the one to make that
Right.
decision, but, since we haven't been considered in the COLAs for the last several years, this was like the first opportunity to
Sure.
give them a raise.
Sure.
Our main objective is just to get our employees off food stamps.
Yeah, I get
So
it, yeah.
that's where we're at with,
Yeah.
with some of these raises.
Yeah.
But I can't
Yeah,
I
well,
can't answer if you would take
I've
it
got
off.
an anecdote there too. I mean, I won't name a name, but Logan knows the name. At one point, we had an employee who turned down a corporal raise because it actually took her off the food stamps. So we, she declined the raise. So again, when I say I've been there, I get it.
I definitely, the clerks having raises, I really want them to get a raise. That's my priority.
And what about, and so we always kind of talk about the funding as it relates to the FTEs, and not to take a walk back down memory lane, because I think we've lived there a lot. But so as of right now, though, it doesn't appear that we can get to 320 from where we're at. And so if there's 424 people that are asked for, all the medical staff, that is what it is, but, so that would be an increase to 351.5 on the other side. Would you guys be willing to park some of that money into not an account necessarily, but on a watch list somewhere, that instead of us giving the full amount of money for all the detention officers up front, you could come back and say, hey, listen, we hit that 320 finally. We're actually at 340. Can you give us the 20 that we've already kind of got parked and set aside somewhere else? And the only reason that's a concern, again, for me, and I'm only gonna speak for me, and people can echo it or not, doesn't really matter to me. The weather's always nice on the island. So, you know, it's just that since the trust doesn't lapse money back to the county, that's kind of been a reservation for, I think, folks that if, you know, like, so say, and I'm just using this for an example, and I know there's a VHS component that came in, but if you're funded for 320 for the whole year and you only had 290 on average the whole year, 30 bodies times an average of $70,000 a body with FICA retirement insurance, that's a couple $1 million. Again, I know that it's shifted and mingled with VHS, but would there be any consideration on y'all's end if we were to take that money that we would otherwise give you, that you, I hope you come back and say, hey, listen, we're 440. I'm again, when I say I've been there, I realize that, I mean, other than, he was actually one of my first supervisors, oddly enough. And, you know, that's about the only time I can ever remember being fully staffed. So, you know, that's been, 2 decades ago.
It makes
So-
perfect sense to me. Again, I'm not the,
Sure.
I can't make the call,
Sure.
but it makes sense, and not to tie up money that doesn't need to be tied
Right.
up. Yeah.
But,
That
but
makes
then
sense.
it's still sitting there for when
Right.
it does need to be
Right. That
utilized,
makes
it's
sense.
there and available.
But let me ask this in this conversation, and the lapse issue is huge and moving money around. We're already pulling the benefits dollars out, correct? Why couldn't we do the same and set up the trust payroll account is $10 million, and every month they're submitting their payroll, and it's just coming directly from that account. Those dollars are never transferred over there.
I think that's possible. If we're gonna do like more of an office personal management, I feel like we should do that for everybody though. Possibly, you know.
But everybody else, A, has to go to the budget board to move funds from salary to someplace else, and B, those unused dollars are lapsed back
Yeah.
to go into the next year. Different story here.
Yeah, well, and I actually had another part. It would be, because I know the trust had kind of, and this piggybacks on what Joe's saying. I know the trust at one point had, I think Miles had made a motion to start bringing financial stuff to the trust. And another thing, I think this isn't necessarily a complaint, it's just a way for us to track when this happens next year. So, you know, we've talked about this, and you're familiar from being at the state and stuff. I mean, you know, everything that's locked into those cost codes of 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, you know, just like you have here, salary, travel, you know, salary, benefits, travel, M&O capital. Is it something that you all plan going forward, that, so all of your money, whenever, so let's say today we said, yeah, we're gonna give you the 42 million and change. You know, right now it's locked into those, based on your sheet here, you've got it itemized in those particular categories. So if going forward, do you all plan on going to the trust and saying, hey, listen, we were short this month in buying commissary products, so we had to move some money from the benefits. And the reason that's important is because it allows us as a group to go back and say, okay, well, this is where this kind of went across, this is where it didn't, which is, I think, part of the problem that happened in the current years. We weren't entirely sure where the 4.6 or whatever, where it came from. And that was just because when the money's kind of all crammed together, and it's, you know, there's not specific transfers from each individual category, it's a little bit harder to follow. Is that something that, and again, we obviously can't direct you to do that, but is that something y'all would be able to do when you go to the trust? Like, hey, we started the year with, you know, I'm just making up numbers, we started the year with $20 million on salaries, but based on turnover, we're not gonna use all that, but we sure need a new elevator, so I'm requesting to transfer $1 million from salaries to $1 million in M&O or capital or whatever the case is, and actually do that in front of a trust. Or when you come into the BET, can you do your monthly updates? Is that something that y'all can provide?
So basically just a budget revision, sure we've moved money
Yeah.
from one, instead of letting one go in the hole and one has
Exactly.
excess, yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't change your bottom line any.
Right.
And if you, and I'm sure you appreciate your life a lot more than I do, but I mean, I like your own life, because like when you look at the budget board, like every month there's some sort of weird transfer like that. Somebody's making a transfer from benefits to capital. Somebody's making a transfer from capital to salary. So there's all these interfund. It doesn't change the bottom line of the number. It just changes which, cost center it's going into.
Now, are you talking about like from one of the 5 groups?
Yes.
That would be going.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about 5455 to 54456. I'm not talking about.
So like this fiscal year, you had the VHS contract because you were short on employees.
Right.
You would have just gone to the trust and said, hey, we don't have enough employees, we need to do this contract. So we would like you to move $2 million from our salary and benefit, $1,800,000 from salary, $200,000 from benefits down to M&O so that we can encumber a contract for VHS to fill the void for the employees that we don't have. That would be an example of how it would be done.
Yeah, so that's how we would normally operate anyway. It's just this current year budget was very different.
Right.
So getting started in
at
FY
the,
27.
May CJA meeting, and it won't be a surprise to the administrator or the trust. The county clerk is going to present standard, so how we do transfer of appropriations, our policy and forms for that to the trust. And there has been informal discussions about using that. So while they haven't adopted it officially, it will be presented in May. I think May 11th might be the meeting.
Well, and I think when Miles made that motion several weeks ago, maybe 2 months ago at the trust, I think that's what the intent of that.
I think the intent was to try to get in compliance with Title 60, 176, and 176.1, where it talked about budgeting and with budget amendments and,
yeah.
But only he knows exactly what it was.
I just know that was something that you all be able to do, at least especially here. I mean, I think this is.
It'll help a lot, just
Right,
understanding.
just knowing going forward. That way, it's not, I mean, again, if you had to do that next month, you gotta, whatever, I mean, nobody in here said, well, I didn't know anything about it,
It would make a lot more sense looking at the financial statements when you don't have big negatives here and
Right.
positives here,
Yeah.
just to have it clean.
Just move the money around. But that's all I have, that's all the questions I have over here. I lied. Okay, what is the hand up?
We knew to wait here
Yeah,
a minute
yeah.
more.
When's the last time clerks, housing monitors, and specialists got an increase? Increases so far been to actual officer people that can have an inmate contact? Do you know when the last time they got a raise is?
Not off the top of my
Has it been since the trust?
head. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Didn't you guys tell me it was 2 years ago?
Yeah, I was thinking 2 or 2.5, 3, but I can get that information too.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you knew. Not been super recent at least.
No. I've got more of that.
I do think it would be good going forward if we have the funds to, when we're looking at COLAs, look globally, across both. I think Brandon's idea of doing that instead of, looking at raises here and there, we kind of treat those separately, if we kind of look at all of that together, I think it would be helpful.
So when you're looking at that, you're not just talking about just this FY, you're talking about going forward.
Yeah. You adjusted the jails number in the top line for general government?
Yes, sir.
Will you scroll down on that sheet a little bit? Okay, so with the removal of the BCC,
Yes.
We'll reduce 150 to 147.
I'm gonna fly something in sideways here that's on nobody's radar, I promise.
Oh, I got one for you.
Okay, good.
Just wait.
We'll have
Let's
competing torpedoes. So I know that the BOCC and had made a comment or maybe took a position on the Daily Living Center. Is that contract not approved at all? Did they vote
Correct.
to cut that off totally?
Correct.
Yeah, I was just curious. I mean, I can appreciate and understand the conversations that we have for looking at reductions for budgets. But, in the business world, there's a common thing that says, you can't cost cut your way to profitability. And just because I think it's short term, I don't think it's sustainable. Case in point, I think we've had some good examples where people look into their budgets and they say, okay, well, benefits was short by a little bit of money, so we actually have a means to an end here. Again, while I appreciate, both your, bringing that up, I'm one man on an island here. But, you're trying to save 4% a year to fill a $600 and some million hole is, again, our grandkids will be on this thing before that happens. And I'm not saying it's not worthwhile, but it's not sustainable to have to do that year after year after year for the next 2 decades.
Well, and I don't think necessarily the thought process behind that reduction was to fill a $600 million hole per se, because we have a lot of things looming. We have possible legislation to affect our ad valorem. There's several things. The BCC, there's several things that have still yet to see how it actually pans out. So I don't think it was a foregone conclusion that it was to go straight towards a $600 million hole. I think it was just to be proactive and try to cut where we can, when we can, as soon as we can, to be better prepared or to be in a better position whenever the chips may fall.
Yeah, and I totally get that. I think if there's excess in budgets, I think it needs to be gone. But if people are cutting vital functions,
Yes, Brandon,
becomes problematic.
I think part of the decision making on the 180 was that when they dug a little deeper, they were servicing roughly 22 people on the 180. Now, how all that works out, I'm not sure. I wasn't part of that, but that's what went into decision making. Again, that was before $163 million. And maybe that you revisit that issue of providing some of those seniors services again at that amount or something less. That you do an RFP and you look for new providers and you lock down actually how many people are being serviced, et cetera, for those dollars. So
and honestly, in watching the BOCC, I thought Mond had a kind of a touching tribute to it. I think that, dare I say, it almost kind of seems sad to get rid of it, to be honest. And if
Well,
we're
it was
sitting,
definitely a difficult conversation.
if we're sitting there staring at a $16 million surplus, it seems to me that $163,000 going to a place kind of seems like one of those useless cuts.
Well, there were,
just speaking from my own experience.
like Joe said, there were several contributing factors to that, and one was the benefit for that investment as well, as far as the number of people that it served.
Yeah, again, I don't know a single person that's ever been there, to be quite honest. It was just something that saw it in one of the meetings, and I thought, that was kind of because on that same agenda item, I think there was that 4%, or maybe not, at least subsequent to it, the 4% reduction ask. And again, I think that was kind of before we maybe knew the scenario that we were going to be in.
I know you mentioned possible changes in statutes, but those are not going to be reflective on this year's budget.
Oh, I understand that.
So there's nothing.
She was just saying for when it's coming.
Yeah, I just want to make that clear though, dear. So.
It's good to be proactive rather than reactive.
It is, but We also don't know what that's going to do just yet, because nothing's been passed, so.
You're the one that always tells us to get ready. You've been
Well,
saying it.
I'm just letting you know what's out there, so.
But you've said time after time, right? We're not gonna have a budget reduction
backwards.
as a result of any of this.
Correct.
So,
Well, there could have been.
There could have been, but now with
But
the
what's
bills that
still
are
active,
left,
what's still active
but, right,
is just slow the
but,
game.
but where we sit today,
so we said today, there's no change.
so our revenue growth slows, our expenditures should slow to match the revenue growth, just like every year, right?
All right, Christie,
All right.
your turn for your torpedo.
This is just one idea for discussion, of course. Given the nature of the 14, given the unknowns, and again, one person, like Brandon says, I would like to see that the 14,050 figure be put in reserve. Actually, what I'd like to see go into reserve is about 18.5, and I'll break it down. So the 14 million figure, 1 million just starting ongoing operations, and then the 3.5 would be one time. So we'd have 3 categories starting next year. One-time funds, 3.5. That's the 3.5 that's sitting there now that I don't anticipate us using. 1 million on ongoing, which is what we always target to start with. And then 14 kind of separate on a line item in that little section on the watch list. And then in order to get there, we're close, we're at 16 instead of 18.5. Look at flat budgets to start and then reevaluate everything in September. It's just discussion. I mean, we can
What is
have an
your,
idea.
what's your concern with the 14?
Um,
Are you concerned it's not ongoing money, and if so, why?
I was viewing it honestly as a one-time windfall to 26-27 is how I was viewing it. And I know you made comments yesterday, so it got me thinking. And since it's hard to know, here's what I'm more worried about the 14. I need to see the 14 materialize, meaning I need us to get to September, do the same exact calculation that we did this past September. And if that 14's still sitting there, I'll feel better about it.
I agree.
Okay, so then let me ask you this, so the reason for the flat budget, because everything we're funded in is full answer, 16,071,980.
Well, then maybe not flat, maybe, I'm just trying to find a delta now of about, what are we at, 16? 16, yeah, about 2.5.
Well, and you've got the 3.5
Sure.
somewhat committed to the BCC, even though not officially.
Well, but it's not
And then-
committed any more to the BCC than the rest of the other budgets.
Sure,
Yeah.
but it is a projected expense.
Well, so is the
Oh, I
so are the
wholeheartedly
other
agree.
full budgets that are up
We'll
here.
get that on the watch list July 1.
But
Right,
we
along
can't,
with
but we
other
can't say,
expenses
we can't
that
sit
we
here and
have
say that
coming
we're gonna stay flat and not meet the needs of other offices because we have $3.6 million on the watch list for the BCC. That's not gonna be considered absolutely unless this group votes on it, but that's not gonna go to the top of the list over everybody else's decreases that you're talking about taking out of their estimate of needs, correct?
Sorry, I don't understand what you're asking.
Well,
Like that you're saying that that's not more
If the
important,
14
I don't think it's any
materializes-
more or less important.
right,
But
but,
it was on the estimate of needs. at
well,
the
but you're
beginning of the
saying
meeting,
we're
and
gonna
now
have
you
to
put it on the
consider
watch
that
list.
3.5 because it's on the watch list, but then everybody else's reductions that we're talking about would be
Sure, why would
theoretically
that be?
going on the watch list.
Right, but I don't think the BCC is less important because you've taken it off the.
Well, I think
I
there's a
think-
legal hierarchy of importance.
Yeah,
There's constitutional versus.
that is not a
Sure.
constitutional
But you
requirement.
also have built that facility with ARPA money, $40 million of ARPA money that's already invested, that if we don't operate the facility, we could potentially be liable to return.
It's just for construction.
Yeah. Just for construction.
It's just for, the 40 million is just for construction.
Right, but for the
It's not
building to
operate.
sit vacant,
There's no obligation.
It's not
Yeah,
good for, good for the building or necessarily good for the mission, but I just wanna make sure that on record that the $40 million is for construction.
But if you don't operate the facility, then there's no chance that you would owe the money back. So the ARPA money, we just get to sell the building.
As the
and then-
regulations are understood today
Yes.
by our consultant, there is no obligation to repay the funds. Now, where it may end up hurting us is trying to get future grants, et cetera. But
Or if we ever had to sell the building, there's
Right.
30-year
30-year,
disposition clause, so. But I just wanna make sure we're clear that
Yeah, I appreciate
we
that.
wouldn't have to return funds back to Treasury based off of the guidance that we're receiving from our consultants.
Sure.
Based off of it not opening money. I just wanna make sure.
Christie, I wanna strip, okay, so I mean, cause I mean, I feel like these are the times we need to hash out. So going back to, the 14, your concern is the timing of it? Or, so, cause one of the questions I asked originally was, to you specifically, was if we hit the rewind button on time and that we were sitting here in September of 2025 last year, and the clerk brought in and said, hey, good news, you don't have $142 million to spend, you have 156. Would you have the same reservations?
No, because it'd be within the same fiscal year.
Well, it is in the same fiscal year. We're
No.
still in a.
The
you mean-
14 is gonna show up now for us to use in 26,
No, I
27.
realize that, but I just mean that, it came in this fiscal year.
Sure,
It
Oh,
just
yeah.
wasn't on a paper.
it
So-
didn't get budgeted.
Right, so I think that's my question, so if they said we had 156 this time 6 months ago versus today, why do you have concern today versus if you wouldn't have it back then?
Because we wouldn't have 16 million right now.
Well, we'd have the exact same amount. Yeah, we would still have the same money.
No, because you'd be comparing it to, instead of 142, you just said if the 14 was in there, we wouldn't have that much of a difference, right?
But the 142 would be 156 plus whatever the growth was, and then you're at that 16.
And everybody last year was funded at their full amount, and then the jail eventually got their full amount between Jewel and the 4.6. So we'd have our exact reserve balance now plus the 14,050. You see what I'm saying? So like right now, our current reserve balance is $5 million. But if we had the 14,050 back in September and we funded everybody identically to the point that we have today, our reserve balance would not be 5 million, it would be 19 million. See the path I'm walking? So I'm just, and,
That's assuming we did everything the same.
all we can go off is based on what we know now. But either way, it would have been accounted for whether or not I mean, obviously we can't unring the bell. We know that we were funded at this point, but my position is, again, I am not the CPA in the group. I think there's 2 in this room maybe, but to me, if we've collected $162 million to this point, I don't know why we wouldn't do that again next year. I guess is what I'm missing. I mean, I'm not saying I don't appreciate your concern, but I feel like if you're worried about the 14 now, we would have also been worried about it in September. Again, I know we can't play that back, but just kind of playing make-believe here. I mean, going back, I don't think anybody would have questioned, oh yeah, cool, we've got 156 to work with, not 142. But because of the timing of it. And you said and I think you said it, I think you were saying in one of the meetings, I don't remember which, but the cash has been there the whole time, right? So it's real cash that's been there.
So how we got to the 14 starts with the cash balance from the treasurer.
Correct.
So on the sheet where this was calculated, the first number was 36 million. We can identify that. From there was a calculation. I can't check that calculation. I'm not privy to it.
Okay.
And then it goes, I mean, there's those 4 sections that turn into fund balance. All I can say is at that sheet, the top, the 36 million was to the penny with what the treasurer has on hand on June 30th.
But you can see the sources of that revenue.
I can't sit here and say exactly what the 14 was from because it all comes in all year long. and it's part of a big bucket. I mean, I can't tell you the 14 was brought in from this refund or this. I mean, all the revenue comes in.
So, I mean, throughout the year, is there anything that?
I think I would have questioned how high we were from one year to another. If you go back to 24, 25, I mean, how did we,
That's what
I mean,
question.
we were what, 138 to 142? And that was after September supplement even. Of course, this was gonna be September.
Right.
That would have been a big jump, and I don't know why it's a concern of mine, it just is.
I mean, I see where you're tracking, Brandon, and I totally get it, but
I
then,
understand what you're saying.
well, but I also think that we are in an extenuating circumstance that I think we should proceed with an abundance of caution. And I think doing it in the manner in which you said would be proceeding with an abundance of caution.
So instead of it being tied up for 6 months, because we didn't have a discussion back in October, we're talking about tying it up for a full year.
Right.
Waiting until September. This should have been,
So our ask now, everybody's total ask is the 147 number.
Which includes all the cash transfers, yes.
Okay.
Does not include BCC.
I can't recall, I think it was very few of either offices and or departments that put raises in their budget. I think the starting point should be stripping out all raises. And
I don't think we have.
I think there were one or
There
two
are
maybe, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there, but it was very few.
I don't think it was any like global raises in offices. It may have been like a raise for
Some
2
had
or 3.
anticipated based on his
Yeah.
past history of maybe a COLA or a merit increase or something.
Right.
We strip all that out. We have that discussion as a group to determine how the county wants to proceed, including potentially addressing you all that way. And Logan, I get the clerk issue. So maybe we take a look at them separately from some of these other numbers.
We did find out it was 2 years ago, they got a 2.5%.
Okay. So we could potentially catch them up for the previous, whatever those COLAs were, something along those lines. And then I think, although I still have some difficulties with some of your numbers and some of your explanations, I do think it's awfully difficult to be sitting on $163 million and not give them something close to what they've asked for. Now, that's a discussion as whether or not we give you all of the asks for potential employees that you historically haven't been able to fund. I don't know. We need to work that out. And so, right now I'm kind of sitting in that maybe boat with Brandon on how to proceed and knowing that still leaves us 16 million, some number. Mike, what's it historically been for the average on September supplement?
2.5, 3.5, somewhere in that range.
Well, I think you made collections
Which
this
is
year.
why I questioned 14 last year.
Well, I mean,
Or
I think,
what happened?
I think because I think we anticipate 99 million collections for tax dollars. We're already at 106, so there's 7 right there.
I mean, kind of right now, that's just where my head is.
So
It
yeah,
was
I mean,
just for discussion.
We
So
fund
with the-
people at their ask.
if we fund everybody at their ask right now, let's just assume that. I get, because I would say even with the jail, if we pull the additional employees and park it somewhere else, I still want to make sure that we have that money available. We're not going to park it just to say it's parked. We're going to park it so there's actually dollars there to expend when and if we need to pull the trigger on that. But so let's just say that we fund it completely. We got 16.2, or I'm sorry, what?
16.071.
16.071. We've got more than the $14 million sitting there. So, and then we've got more money coming in the September supplement that's going to be ad valorem plus any treasurer's resale and, all of that. So I think that $14 million, the concerns and whatever that we have with that's covered in that $16 million. And I know we've got 3.5 of one time, but we've got September supplement dollars coming in with that. I think that if we start the year off and make sure that everybody understands that the budget that they have to start with, including the jail, so that they have some type of assurance that they know where they're gonna be operating from the beginning of the year, we're not chasing ghosts for 3 or 4 months. I mean, I appreciate where you're coming from, Christy, but if we didn't have 16 sitting there, I would have a much larger concern, but that $14 million is wholly accounted for in the reserve to begin the year with that 16,071.
I think maybe we can find some middle ground between fully funding and doing a completely flat budget, like Joe said, like maybe taking out some of the raises or some of the things that aren't essential so that we're still being responsible with how we're allocating the money and not just putting it all out there because it appears to be there, because you can always go back in September and grant additional funds or put it on the watch list and grant additional funds throughout the fiscal year. But once you do a full funding, it's a lot harder, as we've seen this year, to do cuts or to claw money back is gonna be a lot harder when we do have these expenses on the horizon. We have a jail being built right now that bond money is being spent on right now, and that ship has sailed. So I don't think we can ignore that either. So
Well,
I think it's wise to at least meet in the middle, still fulfill our constitutional duties in all departments. I'm not saying that I don't think that some departments have made good requests that should be accommodated, but maybe not just say, okay, let's fully fund everybody at their ask either.
Well, I understand what you're saying. Just one thing, not to be nitpicky, but with what Joe and Brandon are pitching, when you're saying meet in the middle and be responsible, I don't think what they're saying is being irresponsible.
I didn't say that they're.
You said meet in the middle, we need to be responsible with this. That gives an indication that those that are wanting to fund this exactly the way it is would be acting irresponsibly.
I didn't say that.
I know.
I said that I think that we can go.
It could be
Okay,
inferred.
if you're inferring it, but I think that we could go and make some, just look into it to find a middle ground.
I think if there are officers, and we've already had some in their estimated needs submitted, I essentially submitted a flat budget. It's like $12 more because of our employer premiums, right? We submitted a flat budget. There are some officers that apparently felt they could absorb a cut, and they've done so. There are other officers around the table that are similarly situated to us, or because they feel that they have obligations that they must meet, either constitutionally or statutorily, they've submitted an increase. We have the money. I think we need to fine tune, continue to discuss some of these things, but if we'd have had this money, had known about this in September, right, we'd be discussing about a budget of 156 plus the growth. So we'd still be at the same number. I'm one of the biggest critics of the way they budgeted and handled their money, but I also understand that we need to fund them. So if they're going to now budget more like us so that it's easier to track their dollars and that there's enough public accountability of where those funds are going, I don't see a reason that I personally, me as representative here,
We also don't agree with the way it was budgeted, so, yeah.
So when you say meet in the middle, like what specific things are you talking about? So you just talk about pulling out raises. Do we know what that number is?
I don't.
Is
I
there-
think that's a good place to start.
Brandon, I don't think it would be a lot, but just that way everybody's on the same plane.
Is there
And
a
that's
sheet?
what we've done in the past.
Is there a sheet that shows the difference in salaries? Like, for example, but for the new positions we asked for, we didn't have any salary increases. So is there a sheet that shows a plus or minus on salaries, or are new positions rolled into those salaries and benefits? Would be hard to tell.
We may just have to start at one estimate of needs and just go right through.
That's what we've done in the past.
So I have to review each individual estimates.
Okay.
Do we wanna do that right now? Start and go through, or do we wanna task that and come back?
I think we're running out of time for the clerk to get this stuff done, from what I understand.
Yes, sir.
Paul's gone the next couple of days.
I don't know that I'm too far with what I said from what Christie's saying, it's just $3 million or so. It's just, but, I mean,
If we did everybody
Christie,
flat,
could
we're
you-
talking about a different, I'm sorry. Sorry.
I was just gonna
Sorry,
ask you if
Nick.
you could repeat what you had proposed.
Sure, and these aren't exact numbers, but, in reserve, we would shoot to start out with 18.5. One category would be the 14 million. We'd have 1 million starting July 1 in ongoing operations, and then 3.5 in one-time funds.
So we're about $2.5 million away.
And I'm guessing some of the estimates are gonna have some contract increases in it too, that are just by nature. And then there's gonna be some special needs behind that. I know our office is a special need, but that's identifying and using the OSU CAMA money that we reached out to work for the reimbursement to fund that.
That's on your canvas.
y'all don't hit me, but $1 million of that is basically tied up in their raises, right, of that 2.5 difference. And if we treat everybody equally, knowing maybe a possible difference for clerks, and that's $1 million right there. You look to see where other raises are. Probably not.
Which line items are you talking about, Jeff?
I think, Brandon, I'm looking at let's do the next to last page down here where it has the,
The 50% the specialist increase?
yeah, 471, the 412, the
The
77.
471 is gone now.
Yeah,
When they resubmitted, they took that out.
yeah.
Okay, all right.
So
it's a
they're,
half
they're
million.
around 500,000.
Yeah, half.
Between those three lines.
61,949 plus 29,430.15 times 1.1965. There's 615,932.54.
Then Brandon, the numbers you were talking about earlier in terms of their staff, and maybe Logan, you can help out. Where you're at now versus where you'd like to be, what is that dollar figure?
I say that one more
The
time.
DO stuff.
Yeah, the DO,
The
increase in
320.
DOs and
Well,
others.
so they're asking for 10.13 more medical staff, so that leaves on the non-medical side is 31 and a half people.
Did you have a
Well-
dollar breakdown on that?
Well, no, not exactly. I can probably pull the medical side out and see.
What do your clerks make annually now and what are you proposing? Do you know?
I don't know, I can get that for you. I'm having this right on my, all the spreadsheets that I brought, I don't have.
If we were to take, for example, those 25 detention officers and park that money, that frees up 1.408,177.33 as well. So there's $1.5 million, roughly.
That gets us to September.
Which would still fully fund the jail's request with 25 DOs parked in the garage over here.
Would you just put that on the watch list or what would you?
Yeah, it would have to go on the watch list, but we would have to,
Definitely.
we would have to keep that money.
And then that would get the clerks to where Logan would like to get the clerks on there.
Yeah, that's
Pulling any of that.
That's leaving the clerk money in there. So if we just did 25 DOs,
You said that's 1.4?
say again,
Did you say that's 1.4?
1.408,177. I think we ought to make a motion to get rid of the pennies.
Round it.
So that would put 17.480 in reserve if everything else were funded at its full. So it leaves us $1 million short of what your concern is. And again,
And like you said, we
your
still have
concern
some
is not lost on me. I really think that if turn back time, I don't think we're facing the concern.
Okay.
And I think the increase looks so large because it looks like it's coming in 1 year rather than the actual
Even
2
last
years.
If we budgeted everyone at their request, and we did for the first time in I don't know how long, and we bailed out the 4.9, I know some was dual, but, and we still had 14, something, I never would have thought, but our big money that's been sitting in reserves since the end of since we did 24, 25, that's that 14.8 from the sheriff and our interest. I can't imagine that one fiscal year going from 24 to 25 fiscal year, we would have had $14 million more that we didn't.
Not that necessarily plays a big factor, but not all of that reserve was 14.8 from the sheriff. Remember, whenever Andrea did the work to give that back to the county, like 6.9 of that immediately was carved out to the jail. Remember, only like 8 something, 8.5 went in, I think.
Into reserve.
Into reserve. The other part of it went over to do some remodels, I think, HVAC maybe or something else. Part of it all didn't go into reserve.
HVAC was borrowed from 2080.
And I don't know exactly what, but
But that's where it was. The money was put into 2080 and
2080.
it was borrowed from 2080 to be able to encumber the contract so that you get started on the jail contract, and then it was put back into the 2080.
Yeah, the only reason I remember that specifically, it was in October of 24, and the sheriff voted no because he made a promise to put it all back into the jail fund.
So even without the 14, when we did September supplement, we ended up putting, our reserve was 10 million. I don't remember the breakdown.
8.5 one time, 1.5, 1.6, it was 10.1.
So, and we would have had 14 on top of that? I don't know. I just need to. In 1 year,
I mean,
without ARPA and without.
But I think here we've got the 14 million accounted for. I mean, if we just move forward,
It's a great place to be. Don't
like
get me wrong.
this,
I want to have.
then we got the
100%.
14. We got the 14 accounted for. Leaves $2 million of money not associated with the 14, and then we've got September supplement that would be able to be our $1 million for our reserve, ongoing that we'd like to put in there.
Chris,
I think we're in a better spot.
So when I was saying earlier that, you can see where it comes from, if it were a one-time lump sum somewhere, it wouldn't have come in my opinion, in little dabblings to where you couldn't pick it out, right?
When you look at the statement of revenues, I can't find a $14 million or a $10 million
That's what I'm
one-time
saying,
thing.
so.
That's what I'm saying too.
Which,
How did
would be
That
further,
would be easier if it was
what?
one big
Yeah.
one-time thing and then.
But I think that just provides further, at least preponderance of evidence that it's ongoing money that just has trickled in through increased fees, increased whatever. I don't know.
Okay, so we've got the 1.4 and change that we could park on the watch list for the additional DOs for the jail. Anything else?
Whatever those departments that have requested raises.
Well, let me ask you this, what was, he's not in here so I could talk about him. What was John's number? He said he needed $21 million. And what did that number entail?
24.
It's 26.
No, I know what we've got, but John said yesterday, he said, I just need to make sure we got $21 million. What did that number consist of?
Yeah, I heard 23.
I heard 21.
What he broke it down.
24?
No, 24 is what we had when we made the adjustments.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
Again, this is why we don't
because
rely on
I could have
someone
sworn that he
testimony.
said 21 as well, and we looked it up and And it was 24, and he's like, okay, I'm good.
And so, well, let's just figure
Actually, I'm gonna hand you mine.
Hey, John, yesterday during the meeting, you, at the back, you said that you needed to get to $21 million total. What did that $21 million from what? Was that from all employee premiums, or was that from, cash transfers? That was just from the revenue from premiums, which would be from the employee or employer.
No, just for
Employer
special revenue premiums,
21.
general fund premiums, which includes the jail,
And employee,
those two, and not employee.
not employee. Okay,
Yeah.
so you just needed to get to 21.
Yeah, for
Okay.
that.
Okay, all right,
Yes, sir.
that's what I wanted to, thank you.
Thank you.
So trying to put that case on it.
Brandon, before you, when you talked about the 25 DOs parked in the
Yes.
south, did you also, is that number also inclusive of the benefits?
It does not include benefits, but it includes FICA.
So we would
Because
go
John
ahead
said
and
he-
do the medical, we move the medical over.
Yeah, but if we're parking salary dollars potentially for 25 DOs, you would wanna park that benefits money.
Except for we're just doing that transfer at the very beginning.
Those employees don't exist.
Yeah, but
John said he was short last year.
Okay.
He said that the,
That's right.
that they were
Okay.
short about at least 600,000.
but you're gonna either be long or you're gonna be short during that year. Cause if somebody has employees that wind up taking insurance in November, starting January 1, because of what we're doing now on front funding, that's not gonna show up and start going over into employee benefits until that next fiscal year. Because we're not billing on those general fund departments a month at a time, it's just all at the very beginning of the fiscal year.
So the reason I asked the benefits question is because John said on this spreadsheet, he needed to see the bottom line at 21. That number is 26. So which means that's $5 million more than he anticipated having. So switch back over to the BED spreadsheet.
I'm sorry.
Switch back over to that. Why don't we adjust the employee benefits cash transfer that would happen at the beginning of the year and put that on the September supplement as well to get to Christie's 18.5 million. And I don't see why that's not a perfectly good compromise. Functionally, what that would do is that would fund everybody at the full request. You would put 25 DOs that the jail's asking into a garage on the side. It would also have $18.5 million sitting in reserve in the event that come September, these numbers don't line up, which I'm inclined to believe that they will, but if they don't, then we can then tackle that problem then.
And it would give Wilkerson the amount of money, actually.
It would still give him more than he's at, it would give Wilkerson more than he's at, even if we.
And it will allow us to further dig down into the numbers on the BCC.
Correct.
Are we sure he meant 21 overall or just employer premium?
He just said employer premiums, which is that sheet that.
But if we're high on employer premiums, that's 26 million, so he's getting 5 million more there than what he needed, so that 5 million could come out of another area. So that's Brandon suggesting taking that out of.
On this employee's benefit sheet, the employee's premiums are at 21.
The employer premiums?
The employer, well, that's all he, right.
Yeah, that's
off.
That's his request though, Christie. What we're saying is that when you take all the estimates of need,
Comes up
it
that
comes
much.
up to 26. It's $5 million more, $5 million more than he even needs.
Well, we say that, it's a self-insured account, so when we have, I mean, that's actually good news, because when we get that in there, when we have bad years, we've got a balance in there, so we're not having to pass that to everybody and be like, hey, we need to put more money into employee benefits. We should have a healthy balance in there anyway, so that could help. But yeah, you take 2.5 million off of that 10,033, that gets him even $2.5 million more than what he had anticipated. So he's over. We get the 18.5 million in reserve to start the year.
Can I make,
Can we
on
look
the
at the
benefits
sheet?
part of it, it's not the 25.
Are you looking at the employee protection?
Yes.
The $25 amount, or the 26 that you're seeing here,
Yeah.
that includes the health premiums plus the FICA and your car contribution. So in actuality, it's a 17. That is just the health employer premiums, not 26. Does that make sense?
No. Can you scroll to the top of that sheet?
Yeah, what's the title on that thing? Oh, yeah, benefits request. So that's got,
So,
That's all benefits.
yes, this column here, which is the 26, that's all your health employer premiums, plus your defined contribution and your FICA Medicare. That's what totals these numbers, total numbers here. Now, what John is needing just for the employer premiums is just this column here, which is your health and your health premiums.
Well, we had been adjusting when we were doing some stuff yesterday. Brooke was adjusting that FAR column, the FY 26-27 requests. Did the column health, dental, and life get adjusted accordingly?
Oh, that one I'll probably need to do.
and if this is capturing everything, would the
Yeah,
employee share be in there too?
Yeah, it's capturing, see, it's capturing your FICA, and your employer premiums, which is this amount right here.
But we made some adjustments yesterday.
Mhm.
And I'm just wondering if the adjustments in that health column, if those were adjusted yesterday. Because I saw adjustments being made on that FAR column.
Well, it's because it all totaled together.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So then if he was needing the 21, is that on that, the transfer? Christie, how much was, I think you've got his document there showing the amount that he needs, right?
Yeah, what's the total amount that John needs to make employee benefits go for FY 27?
According to his, on the projection
Well,
here,
this is hard to read. He's estimating expenditures at 46.8.
46.8.
Mhm.
Okay,
But he's only showing projected revenues at 43. He's showing like a 2.9 negative ending balance.
okay, so let's walk through this. So 47 is what he says he needs to make that thing work.
Can you guys pull this up,
yes.
please?
Where did we get that cash transfer number on that BET worksheet?
That came from, the projection.
It is showing on here.
So that's the sheet you're looking at?
Can you blow that up a little, please?
Move a little bit up a lot, please.
Okay, so
Is that enough for you more?
I think that's okay.
A little more? Okay.
Okay, so column, so cell P 27 is how much he thinks it's gonna cost to make benefits work. Okay. So where did John get the employer premiums of 20,716,000? Because the other sheet says 17. Or who filled that number in? Who filled that employer premiums number in on P 30?
That'd be John.
Okay, where did he get that?
P30,
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about P.
Oh.
Yeah, because FY 26 is.
Yeah,
So where did he get that number? Do we know? Okay. Well, what I'm asking is, I mean, so it doesn't match the other sheet that you had pulled up.
right.
It's $4 million long. But I'm assuming he's pulling it. I don't know how he calculates his revenues, or where he pulls the number from. I don't know if he gets it Munis, gets it from y'all. I don't know where he gets that from.
That'd be a question for Joel.
I think Jessica's gonna go get them.
Yeah, cause that's confusing to submit a
Yeah.
transfer of only $10 million, knowing we're gonna be 3 short to start the year.
Were you checking to see if John was available?
He's with a customer right now.
Oh, okay.
Transfer in for this fiscal year too. Oh, 40. That's showing the 10 million as well, but on this sheet, we've got it in as a different amount for a cash transfer.
Is that 2716, is that from that other page, was that just general fund or does that include cash accounts as well?
It should include cash.
But was it on that other?
You talking about the BET spreadsheet this year?
Yeah,
That's just
that,
general fund,
that's
so that might be.
just
the point.
general fund, yeah,
Okay,
so.
well, there's a difference.
So then you've got cash accounts on top of that 17, where's the cash accounts
Where's the spreadsheet for that?
on the other?
We'd have to pull that part of it.
Well, can you go back to that other document that showed the anticipated revenue? Okay, so he's got 20 million for employer premiums. So that must be what it is, that he's got the 17 is the general fund and the rest is cash accounts. Because there's no line item on there for cash accounts. Did he do a projection that showed what the cash account employer premiums would be?
Not that I see in our work file.
Is there a note maybe to the far right of that document or anything?
Well, I guess down here at the bottom, you put that your participants and then what the. But that just be for the. Well,
Employee.
there's your.
I don't know, maybe not.
I think if not, they could probably be useful this time.
Stevie, I don't know for sure if we're gonna get to a final recommendation or anything like that today. You guys
We
are
just didn't know if
welcome.
we needed to stick around or
No,
not.
you're welcome to. I don't know exactly, how far we'll get. We may need to come back or whatever, so just, if you guys need to mosey on.
Okay, I think part's gonna stay and part's gonna go.
Okay.
I do have those clerk, salaries for you. 5 different.
So I'll share in case anyone else is interested that
Thank you.
there's,
Thank you so much.
there's,
Thank you,
5
ladies.
levels of clerks and they start
And
at $32,777 and the level 5 is at $41,557 currently. So 32 to 41 or 33 to 42. Do you all happen to know, do you have more turnover in your detention officers versus clerks, or I would assume?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I didn't close probably.
And are the clerks, they do intake, is that right, or what's?
Clerks do, intake, the computer work of the intake process. They do, data entry, in the updates department. When the court paperwork comes back, they do data entry on the court paperwork, calculate the county jail time, enter warrants into the system.
Are they all no inmate contact still?
Most of them are no inmate contact, or very minimal, like, your clerks in receiving will have contact with them, very minimal.
Yeah.
Do you have a detention officer present when they do have contact, or?
99% of the time,
Okay.
yes. And when I say maybe not, like a trustee going through cleaning will be
Okay.
around them. Yeah.
Yeah, what are we trying to do with this sheet here? We're waiting on a number.
I just need John to. We wanna recess it and.
Yeah, I don't know if John's gonna be available in short order.
Okay.
Oh.
There he is.
Hey, sorry about that, I was in a meeting.
I was the only one that waved in you. Everybody else would be working the show.
We were ready to recess, and then you showed up.
Thanks, John.
So this is very preliminary, after April's closed, I was working on it actually earlier today, we'll revise this, but I think it's looking better than this bottom number, this ending fund balance. This is this year's total, but what I did is just, at the end of March, I just projected out based on averages, but averages are looking a little better now, so, I would say just the same transfer amount as we had last year, and then once we come up with the next estimate, we can put a watch list item if we need more.
So John, let me ask you this. So you anticipate the benefits for FY, well, because we're more so discussing FY 27 rather than 26 right now.
Okay.
So FY 27, you anticipate benefits cost $47 million total.
You know, it all depends on what they trend to. That's just an estimate.
Okay.
And if you scroll up, so at the end of March, what I did is I calculated what our averages were and brought that out for the rest of the fiscal year without moving expenses into the next fiscal year, which we always do. But I just did averages. And then based on those averages, if you roll it over to the right, I just put, that was my projection in March, end of March. I just put 2% on medical, 2% on prescription drugs, and some increases in other places.
Okay. So 47, again, I know it's just a guess.
Yeah.
A pretty educated one, but a guess. So 47 million, and then, so scroll, if you'll scroll down on the sheet, Albert. So when you say you need to get to $21 million in employer premiums, that's still gonna leave us.
Sure, yeah, based on that March
$2.7
estimate, but like I said, that was at March and things change, you know, that was based on averages, so the numbers look better now.
And your employer premiums shouldn't change.
No,
Just expenses. They
Right.
should go up, right?
So what we're asking about is your 20.7.
20.7, so we brought forward some money from last fiscal, or the prior fiscal year into 25, 26, so that's why those were a little higher.
In employer premiums?
Yeah, absolutely, because, sorry I just jumped into this, but 23, 24 is when general fund premiums were taken monthly, okay? So when we go into 24, or 25, 26, the June from 24, 25 was applied in July of 25-26, if that makes sense.
Okay, so maybe you can ask, let me reverse. So based on what you submitted, because the employee premiums, or the employer premiums that you anticipate getting are 20.7, correct? And that includes general fund and people's cash accounts.
Correct.
Okay, the employee premiums, you anticipate getting 3.5 million. And that includes everybody currently on the plan.
Yeah, and then that number I think is a little elevated just because it's the same situation. We brought money from June into July. But yes.
Okay, so if you got that cash transfer of 10,033,000, and I know you probably can't predict this, do you predict having ending fund balance of negative $3 million, or do you think that it'll change enough that it'll be?
I think it'll be way better. You know, I need time to estimate it when April closes.
Okay.
Yeah, because when this was done with 3 months left in the fiscal year, just based on averages. And our medicals went way down since then. If you remember that real spike we had in medical this fiscal year, it started to come way down. So when is your deadline to get this done? Today?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I mean, the county clerk's the one that needs the time to put it all together for the stuff they have to do. I don't know what that is.
Well, as far as what we put on the BET recognition spreadsheet, it's cash transfer of what goes on your BET recognition spreadsheet.
Well, I know, but what I think is by the time the BET makes a recommendation to the budget board, how much time do you need to do all the stuff that's got to go to budget board? And then beyond that, once the budget board makes that approval, how much time you need to meet all the deadlines to get a file on time? Because I know there's a pretty extensive and exhaustive list of timelines and statutes that you have to meet. It is.
Yeah.
Well,
as long as we can.
I think we can say if we have a recommendation for the budget board, that back end stuff, they're comfortable with that timeline. That's the same one we've always done. So if we can just meet budget board.
I was just based off of what Brooke said when I said it's May 7th early enough, and she said no. Again, I don't know what she needs, but we were talking about May 7th yesterday, or whatever it was.
So again, when I did this at end of March, it looks like we're gonna be about 1.1 million short for this fiscal year, but medical has trended way down since then. So this is really just an early estimate with 3 months left in the fiscal year. You know, one thing I would suggest if you have to make a decision today is just come up with the same transfer amount and then put, you know, maybe 2 million on the watch list if we have to make an answer today. But month end hasn't even closed for April yet, but I'm working on.
Imagine 1 month bringing up to 2.9.
Well, that's kind of, and I have to come up with if you roll us. I'm just guesstimating. Claims could go way down, they can go way up. That's just total estimate.
True.
You know? So if we have to make a decision today, I would say keep the same transfer amount, but around 2 million on the watch list, and we could just see how that goes.
John, on your 20.7, tell me again how you got that number? Like if we were to plug in the true employer part of all the estimated needs.
So from my understanding, again, correct me if I'm wrong, Albert, but I think in 24-25, general fund premiums were front loaded. They were taken from payroll.
Right, I know the history, but all I'm saying is the 20.7.
Yeah. So what the difference is between those numbers is in this fiscal year, we brought in June's.
Right, I'm not worried about comparing. I'm worried about that one cell, 20.7.
Yeah.
If we were to add up all the estimated needs, because you said that's just an estimate based on the year before,
Yeah,
right?
this is just.
So
go ahead.
If we were to add up, we have everyone's estimated needs.
Good, because I don't have that.
Okay.
I don't
we
have
need
that.
to add that up, and that should be the number there.
Exactly. Because this number right here where I came up with that, Christy, I just took general fund premiums and special revenue employer premiums.
So you're not picking up new position requests or anything?
Nothing. I don't say, I would go off the estimate needs if you have that number.
Okay.
Absolutely. Do you know what that number is on the estimate needs for
Well,
general
how did
funds?
you pick those up then, if you don't have?
It's not new numbers. I just estimated based on current.
He looked at the amount that they actually are receiving
Yeah.
currently and estimated that for next
Totally
year.
based on current, Christie.
Well, we've got the general fund up there at 17 and something, but that doesn't have cash accounts in it.
Doesn't have the revenue, special revenue. Special
Right.
revenue, 3 point something million, I think, this year.
Yeah.
It may not make a huge difference, but
Yeah,
since we
it's
have estimated.
17 plus, we're at 3 point something million already this year, so that would go over that amount. So I would just plug in what, if you have the estimated needs, then we can find out that special revenue number, because that's in there too. But I don't think does it include the special revenue premiums?
So then, question for you, Don. This
Sure.
section down here, this is what the actual employee count is
As of March when I did
as
it,
of March.
yeah.
Okay.
It didn't break it down by premiums, by departments at all.
Because this doesn't factor in like any new positions.
No, not at all. I was hoping and I started to work on it, but the month end doesn't close till next week really, but to bring one back on Tuesday, a more updated one.
So what's the $24 million number? That's employee and employer combined?
Yes.
Okay. So we scroll up just a hair. So if you, just a little bit more. A little bit more. Oh, yeah, right there. So if you include those two, so if you add,
Right.
P30 and P31, what's that?
No, that's not based on that at all, Brandon.
Oh, it's not, okay.
No, it was based on what we received this year, and then,
There's where the actual
Yeah.
bodies on the plan.
yeah, so I just did
Okay.
these numbers are based on what we received this year, totally.
Okay, so I guess the question then that I would have, the question would be, if we do the cash transfer of $10,033,863, again, I know you got the Oracle, but you're at least comfortable that we would make it through FY27 benefits year.
We might have to have a cash transfer. I could say put something on reserve just in case. Because when I did this in March, we were trending like we need about 1.1 million to get through this fiscal year. Now I see medical claims have trended way down. I don't see that being the case. So I would say, I would be comfortable in saying adopt the same budget as we have. Maybe September supplement, adjust the premiums like we always have. And then put a watch list item, maybe for 1.5 to 2 million, just in case it goes above this fiscal year. Because I really think we'll be able to get through this fiscal year without having to do an additional transfer. Last fiscal year, we had about 500,000 more in May in the account, but I don't think we're gonna have to do that when I'm looking at the numbers.
Okay.
So we're not in a bad spot at all, but we're just kind of premature to get better numbers.
Well, I appreciate that explanation, at least for me.
Sorry, it was tied up.
No, you're good.
Okay. So if you're comfortable just going with the same numbers, same budget this year, putting an item on watch list, and then we're gonna have the actuarial study done this new fiscal year, and maybe address that in September supplement, like we always do.
All right, so if we keep that number the same, and then we watch list the 1.4 for the jail additional employees, we're at 17.4, almost 17.5 million in reserve.
And one thing to note on mine, just one more thing, sorry I didn't mention Cody. I know we're gonna get a pretty big increase on retiree over 65 medical. I just don't know exactly what if you'll go down, no, I'm sorry, go up. So, I mean, the watch list, right here, let's go up real quick. So that 1.9 is probably gonna go up at least by $600,000. We've had a 3-year rate lock on everything. We still have one of the lowest plans around, but and they shopped it, but we're probably gonna go up at least 600,000 on that.
Okay.
So May 4th is the date that they need it by, that they need everything finalized by.
So Monday. The poll's up the next 2 days.
I'm out tomorrow. I'm here Friday.
If you don't cancel and come in anyway. Thought I'd ask.
I did that today.
I don't know if you all have met Lisa White. She is one of our new accounting staff, so she is kind of filling in for Brexit's. She had to leave, but she'll be sitting in. She may not be able to work on the fly, but she'll take notes and make any adjustments after the meeting if we have any additional for the rest of the meeting.
Okay. Is there any other adjustments we need to make here? I mean, do we have everything? Has everything that we've talked about been updated on the sheet?
No, I don't think we've done the 1.4, but.
No, you're right about that, but everything else beyond the 1.4?
I think so.
Yeah, I think so too, because we're sitting at the 16 and then that would, the 1.4 would.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna at least make the motion, at least we'll see what happens here. It might take me a little while to work my way through this thing, but, I'm gonna make a motion that we fund, maybe I should get some numbers here first, but I'm gonna make a motion that we fund all the requests that are on the current BET worksheet. The only caveat would be to take 25 detention officers from the jails asked, park that into a garage, or however you wanna call that, a fund garage, and that amount is 25 detention officers, including the salaries and the FICA and retirement on that. That's $1,408,177.33.
What was that amount one time?
It was 1,408,177.33.
So you would just take that amount and subtract it from the general government budget above, and then it would go into the reserve.
And so how I got to that number for your information is the 6920253. There's 147 of those on the sheet that they submitted. I just divided that and multiplied by 25, and then added the FICA back in. So it's not, and so just to be clear, that's not funding that. It's just holding it temporarily until they get to that number. And so I make the motion that we fund what's on the screen right now minus those 25, park that money in an account, which would leave a reserve balance of $17,480,165.33. That's taking the $16,071,988 plus the $1,408,177.33 that we just talked about for the jail.
Can I make one suggestion to your motion?
Sure.
You keep mentioning another account, probably just to start the year for July 1, have it go into reserve, and then we make it part of the motion that it'll be
sure
July 1, and we can even start a watch list. We usually
Yeah, so kind of with that, the caveat would be that we would have, so I guess September supplement would be the time we would look at all that, just because the jail's not gonna run out of that money by September. We would have the BCC to look at in September supplement. We would have the jail's 25 to look at in September supplement. We would have the $1.6 million for transportation to the BCC. And we would have
COLAs.
The COLAs, and then there's a couple other things that the JJC chiller, and then the $1 million for asbestos removal.
I think Paul he sets on that, but you know, in capital currently, I think there is $5.3 million that was dedicated to go towards courtrooms at JJC. Judge Stinson has asked that that project be halted and for us to look at doing something here on this campus.
Okay.
I think it would be the intent of infrastructure to make a recommendation that that money be reallocated to take care of things like the chiller, the asbestos removal, and the build out of potentially the build out of some courtroom space on the 4th floor of the annex at this time. Is that?
And the courthouse room.
So, I thought that was one time thought to be PBA bonds, but so that $5 million that is showing for JJC in the capital, I think that would be reallocated and should address any need that provided funding for those items.
Okay.
That's just kind of an FYI.
Yeah, I guess that really wasn't part of my motion. I was just.
Well, yeah, but you mentioned it, and
Yeah.
it was mentioned the other day, and
Yeah.
I just.
So
I should. Oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was just saying, I think we're just in a really unique position. I hear all the considerations for looking at reductions. I hear the concern about the 14 million, but I think we're in a unique position where maybe for the first time ever, we can fund the jail at their full ask, starting July 1st, and everybody else at their full ask starting July 1st, and maybe avoid some of the nightmare that comes along in January and February and March and whatever. And maybe we can let bygones be bygones and start as a team with everybody together, and let's make it look like we're doing this thing the right way.
So if we don't mind, and Lisa, tell me if you can do this or not, but we've got a motion, but just so everybody is clear and we can see exactly what that looks like, can you remove the 1,408,177.33 from the general government?
Say for this spreadsheet, another amendment to your motion, just lop off the 33 cents, or do 78.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, just remove $1,408,177.
Can you update the amount?
Huh?
The percentage? It's the main percentage, a different amount.
The jail.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, it's already been.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure it's updated before.
Yeah, it's there. So
So that-
scroll down now.
So that 1,408,177 has been taken out of the general government?
Yeah.
Okay, so now let's see what we got below that 17,480,166. Can you move that up into reserve? Guess it this one. You asked me to restate it, so. Okay.
Okay, so if I need to remake my motion, I can, that reflected in this, whatever I need to do.
Okay, yeah, so Brandon's motion is now delineated on the screen on the BET worksheet. So it took the 1,408,177 out of general government so that we can park those 25 positions for the jail in reserve beginning the first of the fiscal year, and it funds everybody else at their estimated needs request, leaving $480,166 in reserve.
And oddly enough, that $17.5 million in there, if you took out the $3.5 million in one-time money, that's right at the 14 million we need. So I just worked out arbitrarily that way, but.
So, to be clear, Brandon's technical.
I just want to get a picture so I have it to compare later. Okay, can you scroll down now? Okay, that's good.
So to confirm, Brandon's technical motion, the one I'm going to take down now, is to fund the BET worksheet as it's listed.
Yes.
Yes.
With putting the 1.4, et cetera, in reserve.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
no.
The 1.4 will be
It's in
part of
reserve
the
on the
17 million.
Okay,
She was
and do
just
you want me
general
to add the part about adding it to the watch list later?
Well, I think we can take a separate item for that or whatever.
Okay.
Whatever we need to do.
So then the motion as it stands is to fund what is listed in the BET worksheet
Correct,
as
as
it sits.
it is right now.
As it sits right now, okay. At the
17.
So it'd be a total,
is that the green?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a total overall budget, yeah.
which that's that 163,252,323 includes 17.48 in the reserve.
And Albert, can you do me a favor? There may be a, I don't know, a formula error or something on this page that you guys find later. If you could, can you email this document the way it is right now? Assuming this motion passes, email this out the way it sits right now to every member. That way, if there is a change because of an error in the document, everybody will have this one, and then we can then reference what potential change, if there is a potential change.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask if you wanted us to email it too.
Yeah, please.
Do I need to say,
Yes.
yeah, do I need to say that motion is making recognition to the budget board?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a,
Add that to it.
It's in the item, but yes.
Okay.
And Brandon, is that also inclusive of, right off the bat, watch list items of the DOs at that number you gave, the BCC at the 3.6 number, and the benefits, potential benefits of 1.5? Is that, John still here?
No, the benefits is all, it was included in the motion.
John said put something on the watch
Oh, I
list.
got you, yeah. We need to do that on a separate item.
Yeah, I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think it'll address watch list items.
Okay. Anyway, that's my motion.
So I have a motion from Brandon.
okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Let's go ahead and just do a roll call. District 2?
No.
County Clerk?
Yes.
District 3?
Yes.
District 1?
Yes.
County, Treasurer?
Yes.
Court Clerk?
Yes.
Assessor?
Yes.
Sheriff?
Yes.
That shall be the recommendation. Is there anything else that,
Do we need a separate motion to create the watch list to be presented at the same
I
time
think-
on the anticipated uses?
well, I don't, not necessarily to be presented, but I think to know what we're gonna put in there, because I can address that with budget board as well. At least for the jail and their additional positions, that way they understand, and we're on the record, budget board gets on the record that we're holding money for their additional employees if they get to a point in the fiscal year that they need the additional money for additional staff. It's been earmarked for. Well, it's gonna be part of our recommendation. It's part of the recommendations. So is there a motion for when I present
Yes.
to budget board that I will mention to them that we are going to put the dollars associated with 25 DOs on the watch list to be able to be considered later in the year, as well as the $3.6 million for the behavioral care center that we will address in September.
And the benefits, potential benefits, John talked about putting on the watch list. I think that number.
1.5.
1.5. And then is there a number, Brandon, for transportation associated with the
Yeah, we'll have to get
BCC?
that. I think that's.
Let's do that in
Yeah,
September.
I think that.
I think
Okay,
it's,
that's fine.
I just think the 1.4, mentioning it for the DOs, all that stuff, when, the minute we create the watch list,
Yeah,
My concern is, I just want everyone eyes wide open that these are things that we're going to need to address.
yeah. We can do that. How about let's get a motion that,
present the watch list every month.
yeah.
I mean, we'll be presenting the watch list every month.
But the one that I think we need to give some assurance that we're looking at is the additional positions for the jail. So is there a motion for me to include in our recommendation to budget board that of that $17,480,166, that $1,480,177 of that will be earmarked for 25 new DO positions should the jail need it during next fiscal year.
So moved.
Okay, we got a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We got a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Joe, the BCC and employee benefits, I will mention to them that we're not losing sight of those. That those are dollars that can still be allocated, and we will be addressing those in September when we're able to have more information on both of those pieces. John's gonna have better information on employee benefits as we move through the rest of the fiscal year, so we'll know whether it needs to be 1.5, 2 million, 3 million, whatever, and same thing on the BCC with the transportation and all of that. Sound good? All right. Have we covered everything? Does anybody need to?
Are there other items on the agenda we need to look at? We don't think we touched like item 11 or any of that stuff, is that all?
I mean, you did and you didn't.
Those were numbers that are
In there, okay.
in there.
Okay.
Yep.
Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so we've got our recommendation for budget board. Anybody else have anything else on the agenda they want to cover? If not, any citizens wish to participate? Seeing none, board comments, District 2.
I just wanna put on everyone's radar to potentially the jail conversation, continuing that as we go into this fiscal year and setting aside money for the new jail operations capital as we can.
District 3? District 1? Treasurer? Court clerk? Assessor? Sheriff? I want to thank Cassie, Albert, Brooke, Lisa, your whole team for everything that you guys do through this process. Thanks everybody for showing up. Jail, thank you for your time.
Hey, I appreciate y'all.
Is there a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
Second.
We got a motion second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thanks y'all.